Hey guys, thanks so much for stopping by. My name is Austin. Today we are taking a look at the Mafex 248 Amazing Spider-Man. This is branded as the Amazing Spider-Man 2, but obviously it's kind of just his look in both that movie and No Way Home. This is one of the best live-action Spider-Man, and I'm really excited to get an updated figure of it. I never was able to get the original Mafex. I was not collecting imports at that time, so um, really like the look of this guy so far and can't wait to get into it. It's been a long time coming. This guy's been sitting in my HobbyLink Japan private warehouse for I don't even know how long because of, tariff prices and all that fun stuff. It was really difficult to get him here without paying way more than I can afford. So excited to finally get him and see what he's like. Before we look at the figure himself, we'll go ahead and take a look at the package. Not really the most interesting part, but got to look at it. We've got pretty good figure photography on the side, and then obviously that Amazing Spider-Man 2 branding. A little bit more of the figure rather than the branding on that side, which is good. Really great product shots here, and just an idea of what the figure comes with. Obviously, that unmasked head, we're going to talk about it, but I have conflicting opinions. I really like the branding overall. I've always really liked the way that the Amazing Spider-Man 2's marketing looked, despite the fact that the movie was maybe not the best. You have that open space there for light to get in, so if you are an inbox collector, that helps out a lot with that. All in all, good box. The bottom just has, your legal information, so nothing too much to write home about with that. With the box out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about Spider-Man himself. So the aesthetics, right off the bat, are really, really good. I mean, this pops so well. The colors match up super well with what we see from Andrew's costume. Everything works really good. I appreciate them putting the belt on the actual diaper piece. It keeps that consistency all the way through. The 185 and the 75, the kind of comic book Spider-Man, they didn't have that, but fortunately Mafex has started doing that, so I'm looking forward to seeing more Spider-Man using that because it really keeps your lines clean and keeps everything looking good. Speaking of lines, you can see some of that kind of modern design for costuming. These lines kind of running through the legs and the sides of his chest. I will say, with the overall silhouette of him, he's a little bit, I don't know, he's a little weird. I can't quite put my finger on what it is. I think it's the size of the crotch piece and how far out the thighs really stick, and you can kind of push them together, but then he's got like a little bit of a weird kind of silhouette going on. It's not bad by any means. I don't know if this is really equivalent to what Andrew's physique looked like. It seems like this is just too slim for the rest of the body. I don't really want Andrew's Spider-Man to be really bulky, but I think that for the width of these thighs, it would have been nice to kind of widen out his midsection a little bit more. I would say, people complained about the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man release from Mafex, which I'll link it here. I didn't have a problem with that. I have a little bit more of a problem with this silhouette rather than that one, just because of how much these hips stick out, and I don't know that that's really true to Andrew's body type. But anyways, that's really not a deal breaker, especially when you start to pose him. He might not look as great in a museum pose, which even still, I mean, it doesn't look bad by any means. I'm almost just nitpicking at this point, but it's pretty noticeable. I don't know. I don't think that's nitpicking. I think he's just got a feminine body type. It's a little weird, but anyways, other than that though, the aesthetics are really well done. Love the paintwork on the bottom of the shoes. It looks great and very true to what you see in the movies. It is kind of interesting. This is the first time I've seen Mafex do a little dot. They have a peg hole now, so that if you want to use a figure stand other than the flight stand that it comes with, you can use that. I think that's going to be kind of controversial. For me, I don't like it. I prefer my imports to kind of have clean bottoms because I'm going to be putting them on a flight stand. I don't really use peg stands like that, except for, Black Series, Marvel Legends, McFarlane when I collect those. It's not my favorite, but also, it's the bottom of the shoe, so not a big deal. The spider is picked out really cleanly. Honestly, all of the paintwork is just really clean. All of the web lines look great. The finish looks great. I know it's a little bit glossy, but I think that works with the type of texture that Andrew's costume had. And speaking of texture, it has that kind of hexagon or rectangular kind of blocking all the way through, which looks great. Yeah, overall, the actual detail work is perfect. I love this head sculpt. I know Farul has an upgraded kind of head sculpt, which does look a little bit better. I don't think it's as important on this guy as it was on Toby's costume. That was, an affront to humanity. Whereas this to me looks pretty good, which might just come from the fact that I'm not as familiar with this head sculpt or this mask design. But to me, it looks really solid, and the paintwork is very clean. Only thing I would note is the white does not cover exactly what it needs to, so that isn't great, and that kind of does make me want to get an alt head. So a little bit of a disappointment. It's always tough when a head sculpt has paint issues, because that's really the thing that's going to draw the most attention, and it's hard to ignore it. Like, you can kind of ignore a messy web line on the forearm or whatever, but when it's on the actual lens of the mask, it's a little bit harder to ignore. But yeah, overall aesthetics on this guy really solid. Pretty happy with him. Just a few little things to look at. That is it for the aesthetics. So now we'll look at the accessories. So accessories on this figure, I will say right out the gate, are a bit of a bummer. I do really like the unmasked head. The hair looks great, very accurate. And I would say overall, the head sculpt is accurate. It's just got a little, I don't know, he doesn't really look too much like Andrew Garfield to me. He kind of looks like the kid in The Sopranos, not the son, but like the guy who's, like the second in command. I cannot remember his name, but for some reason it's giving me that vibe. Or Shia LaBeouf. It's a little bit too messy for me to feel like it really looks like Andrew. But the paintwork on it is exceptionally clean. That 5 o'clock shadow looks great. It adds some depth to the overall sculpt. The paint chosen for the skin tone is great. You put it up against the skin tone, it looks accurate. It matches really well between the neck and the head, which is, to be expected. It's always nice when we get a replacement neck. Mafex always does that, and I always appreciate it. So overall, it's a good head sculpt. I'm glad that they were able to make it happen, with that Amazing Spider-Man branding, because it would have been disappointing to not get it. But I wouldn't say it's one of Mafex's best. So not the worst thing in the world, but then you get this kind of deflated mask for holding onto it in one of the hands. Really well painted, really well sculpted. I like the way that this looks. They do a great job with their kind of empty masks, but fun. I like it. I like to have that, especially for movie characters. I know some people don't really care about having an unmasked Spider-Man. For me, with movies, the actor is a little bit more important in that instance, and I do kind of prefer to have that. So good to have it. Glad it's there. Then if we want to go through the hands, these are the hands that I think are new to this, and I could be wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong, but I really like them. They're like kind of relaxed, kind of holding, but they have that almost a thwip kind of design that I feel like makes sense for Peter. To me, when his hands are relaxed, they're always going to be slightly in that, mode where it's just kind of a muscle memory thing. I really think it's cool that they included this. And it's a very subtle thing, but I'm a big fan of it. So really like these. Also, all of the hands come on this the sprue, which I always appreciate. It keeps them open and, keeps them from having trouble attaching to the figure. So really like that. And then you have the classic web holding hands. There's nothing wrong with these. Nothing really needed to do to make them better. They double as thumbs up hands if you want them to do that, which is always good. Then you have standard thwipping hands. I don't love the reuse when it comes to the thwip hands. To me, every actor, every artist every interpretation of Spider-Man has a different style of thwip hand. And I feel like one of the things about Andrew's, and if we bring the box back, he had a very straight thwip. Like, it's, you know, you can tell, which obviously this may not be him in the costume, like it's promotional material, it might just be a CGI render, but I feel like I remember him having a very clean thwip hand where both the fingers are, fully flat, which even I can't really do it, but hopefully you guys know what I mean. I'm very picky about my thwip hands for no reason, but other than that, it's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with the sculpt work. And the paint is clean on all of these. All of these have really good web lines and really clean sculpting. You get the meme hands. Obviously, there was no way we weren't going to get these, so really exciting stuff. Can't believe it. Then you get jazz hands. You get basically just wall crawlers, expressive, whatever you want them to be. They're good for that, so they get the job done. Then you get the kind of more standard, relaxed Spider-Man hands. These also do a good job of holding the mask. You can kind of use either relaxed hand to hold the mask. It works either way, but like these, good sculpting, it's classic, tried and true. And then we get the magnetic hands and feet that will not focus. Kind of interesting, you see the peg hole is the same as that, I feel like. Let's just do a side-by-side comparison to confirm, but yeah. So I don't know, maybe I got like a misprint or something. I'll have to look at other reviews and see if this is a recurring thing, like a design choice, or if it was just a screw up on their end. But anyways, I like these. They're fine. The magnets are pretty weak. They don't really do much, but they're nice to have the option of if you want to display your really expensive figure on the fridge. Other than that, the sculpt work is all exactly the same. But it's a fun inclusion, and I'm glad that they have kept up with that, because I do like it. Then in terms of web lines, you get, they're kind of this more frosted webbing look. You get kind of a shorter one. Then you get a longer one. Those both have little loops to go around the wrist for the kind of thwipping. You get two of those, and then you get two long, swinging hands. It really does not like these at all. Come on now. I mean, you've seen them before. If you've seen a Mafex figure, you've seen them. They're standard. There's nothing wrong with them. I don't really think much needs to be changed, aside from maybe adjusting this part so that it can, go onto the hand a little bit better. I don't love that. I kind of like it to be, more straight. I would like kind of maybe, I don't know. I feel like there's something they could do to make this more flexible to where you can get it into the hand a little better. But anyways, that's all you get for accessories. You do get the kind of tried and true flight stand, which is good. I always appreciate that inclusion. I will say, though, it's not really doing anything that's blowing me away. It's very standard stuff. So I think this was a cheaper Mafex, which makes it a little bit easier to swallow. I think I paid $80 for it before all of the tariffs and import and whatever. So that's, a little bit better on the price tag, but in terms of accessories, they didn't really include too much. In fact, I'm surprised. I don't know if maybe it's because it was, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 branding, but I'm surprised we didn't get the device for like shutting down the lizard. It's kind of weird to me that was excluded, but maybe that was one of the issues with it being ASM2. They couldn't do that. And I think if the argument is for the unmasked head or a little device that you probably won't even display, I'd take the unmasked head. So not a big deal on that front, but accessories aren't really blowing me away. With that out of the way, we'll move on to the articulation. So the articulation, if you've seen a Spider-Man from Mafex, you've seen this. It's, it's the same. We'll go ahead and just run through it right quick. You have double ball peg. You have kind of a crooked barbell or dumbbell joint in the neck, which is really nice. It allows it to look up that far without engaging the neck, and then even further. That's pretty much perfect for a Spider-Man. I'm not going to ask for much more, and that should be in the, yeah, that's with it kind of crooked back. So then get that back on. If we look down, to me, you should always have the crooked thing going backwards, because like, what more can you really want? Like, this looks really good to me. There's not really any gapping with the neck, so to me that's kind of the way that the dumbbell works the best. But anyways, good range on that. And then you have some very clean side to side articulation. The joint is pretty stiff, but it's not bad by any means. And then of course you can rotate all the way around if that is your prerogative. Then going down to the arms, he has the standard, Mafex butterflies, which I am a big fan of. I think this is one of the best ways to do butterflies. It goes forward really well, back really well, and it's a pretty clean joint. You can also kind of go in and out, so you can adjust your poses that way. If you want to kind of give him a broader chest, you can bring it out, or if you need it to kind of go up to help him move up with the shoulder, which if we get into that, it is not a incredible display from him. So you do really need that to even get above 90, which is like barely above 90, which is honestly it's a bit of a bummer for a Spider-Man. But because you can just go all the way around, like, you're not totally limited. And then you have that bicep swivel that can go all the way around, so you're not really having too much of a difficulty with like working it. It just might not look as natural as it could if you were able to go higher than that. So weird choice on that, I will say, but Mafex does some weird stuff sometimes. Then you get double jointed elbow, which doesn't go as deep as I would kind of like. It's a little bit more limited than I would like to see from this, but not bad. The joint is smooth and clean, so that's good. Then you have, your standard import style wrist balls, so they can hinge up and down or side to side, depending on what you want out of them, so that's cool. Obviously the best style of articulation for a wrist, as far as I'm aware. Then going down to the chest, I'll tell you right now, this is probably the figure's strongest area of articulation. It is super expressive. Without doing the waist joint, you can bring it back that far, which obviously does get gappy. But as I've said before, I prefer gaps and range rather than, preventing gaps by limiting range, because this to me doesn't really look that bad. It's an action figure. You're expecting articulation to be happening. Then he can look or crunch forward that far, really good. Then if we want to bring in the ab joint, he is a little bit hampered by that diaper piece, but really good. It kind of helps keep it a little bit cleaner. And then back, he excels. Again, you are dealing with gapping, so if gapping is a problem for you, then that is a bit of a disappointment. But it does go back pretty much as far as you could ask for a figure to. Now this has the soft piece for the diaper, which I'm a big fan of. I'm glad that CT has been doing this, and Mafex is doing it with their new releases. So he can go out. Let's see what we got. Basically perfect. Maybe you could get 2 more degrees. I don't think you really need that. That's pretty much perfect to me. Really happy with those splits. Then you can kick forward pretty much like you can't really ask for better than that. The diaper gets out of the way really well. That's basically upright. So I love that. Then you can go back. He does have the drop down, so it looks a little bit funny, but you can actually go back, which is really nice. Helps a lot for different types of poses. Without engaging the drop down, you still can go back a little bit because the overlay is soft, so it'll get out of the way. So appreciate that. Then the thigh cut is kind of internal here on this ball, so it's not super expressive. I think we have seen a little bit more range from this type of joint from Mafex before, so kind of a bummer. But it's there, helps to dial in poses. Then you have your double jointed knee. It goes back pretty well. This is good enough for me. We've seen deeper, but to me this is definitely going to get the job done. And it's also a very clean joint. You're not seeing any gapping the way that you would on a CT, and it's very clean friction-wise. It's got a good tolerance to it, buttery smooth. Then down to the ankle joint, standard stuff. You can front-facing pin for rocker, forward and back, all that good stuff. Then you have the toe articulation. It's pretty good. A little bit tighter on this one. It kind of seats into place a little bit more. I think I prefer this level of tension to this one. This one's a little bit too soft, but either way, it's fine. I don't really care about toe articulation, but it's nice to have it to be able to dial in a pose, and it definitely can hinge with the best of them. So overall, articulation on this guy is a disappointment. He's going to get the job done, but he's not really blowing me away, especially for a Mafex, and that's kind of disappointing considering what the figure is and, how iconic the original Mafex Amazing Spider-Man 2 figure was. It would have been cool to get something that really lived up to it. The accessories didn't do anything amazing, and now the articulation isn't even really doing what we've seen from this brand already in a few areas. But that being said, it is still very serviceable. It will still get exactly what you need out of it. It's just not really doing anything blowing me away. So that's all I've got for articulation. Now we'll go into comparisons. Starting off the comparisons, just some kind of relative comparison to give you an idea of how he scales. The 185 Mafex and then the Maximum Series Marvel Legends Spider-Man. Obviously, Marvel Legends scales too big, so even with this, the Maximum release that is a little bit on the shorter side, it's still not really in scale when you stand them straight up, but that's not going to be a big problem if you actually articulate the figure and put it in a pose. For Mafex, he scales well. I think that's about the right height for Andrew's Peter. He's a little bit tall. I honestly feel like he could be taller, but we're going to have to see how he stacks up with his movie counterparts. At time of recording, I don't believe that the Tom Holland No Way Home Spider-Man is out, so I don't have that one yet, but we're going to look at how he looks with Tobey's Spider-Man and then obviously the Figuarts. But anyways, that's what I've got for this kind of relative comparison. So next we'll look at some Marvel Legends figures. On the left, obviously, is Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and then Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. These are both from that 3-pack. Obviously, this is a third-party head. The original was abysmal. This kind of shows you he's short for Legends. That's not really any kind of surprise. Mafex always scales closer to a true 1/12, while Marvel Legends kind of suffers from that scale creep, and it's obviously above the standard 6-inch now. That's not to be said that he can't fit in with your display. I do think there's no real reason why you couldn't just fudge them together as long as they're not in museum poses, and even if they are, just kind of work with your depth and height, and you can kind of make them work. That being said, though, these two, all of the Spider-Man from No Way Home were kind of rough from Legends, but this guy is a really, really solid release. I really love this figure. I think that it's definitely the best of the three. The final swingsuit was pretty good, but anyways, if you're going to replace one of them and you only have the money for one import figure and you want the Legends versions of the others, I don't think that this is really what you need to do, because this figure is really good, and that unmasked head that came with it on the single carded release was amazing. So Legends really knocked it out of the park with this one. The Tobey and the Tom Holland are probably the ones you're going to want to look at replacing, and you would be replacing them with imports, so that leads us into the Mafex and Figuarts versions of Tobey. I am not a huge fan of Figuarts' Spider-Man releases. I really don't like their weird thong setup. I'm hoping that it's not super noticeable on the MVC2 Spider-Man, because it feels like that's going to be something you're going to be using dramatic poses for, and hopefully you can just kind of hide that. When you're dealing with a more realistic human person, I think it's just even more noticeable. But anyways, to me, the Mafex is clearing away the better one. I will say, in frame, I think because I'm not quite, I need to be a little bit lower down and more straight on. So I will say they look closer in height than they are in person. They are a little bit, hopefully you can kind of tell. You can kind of tell in the image. He's definitely, I think he's a little bit short. Personally, I feel like Andrew is a good bit taller than Toby, and it's not really that noticeable here. So I would have liked to see maybe a little bit more height on him. But that being said, it's definitely not really noticeable, and you can definitely see the difference in musculature, which I think is really an important aspect of keeping the three Spider-Men separate. Obviously, the Mafex Tom Holland is not out yet. I do have that one pre-ordered, so when that one comes out, I'll definitely be making a review on it. And then we can kind of compare how he looks up against those. But in terms of scaling, he's fine for both lines if you collect imports. So next up, we've got the Mafex and Figuarts versions of Andrew, except I lied. This is actually CT Toys, but obviously it is imitating the Mafex release. Now, unfortunately, I do not have the original Mafex release of that Amazing Spider-Man figure. This one by CT Toys is super, super good, and I absolutely recommend picking it up. It's probably one of their best releases, but I can't confirm whether or not this height difference is accurate to the original figure. I feel like CT probably scaled him down a little bit just based off of the quality of the rest of the figure. Keeping their prices cheap, that's one solution that many KO companies kind of have to use. But anyways, in terms of overall appearance, these two look great together, in my opinion. They match each other really well. This one's very matte. This one's a little bit shinier. I think that's pretty true to what we see from those costumes. This is the much more cleaned up, comic booky looking costume, and this is the one where it was like, oh, the Dark Knight is the biggest thing in the world, and we have to make everything gritty and dark. And I really love that movie, but anyways, Spider-Man doesn't work as a dark hero. Anyways, this is terrible. This is the worst thing I've ever owned. I hate it. It was not worth the money, and I regret buying it. In fact, that figure is probably the reason I have such a general distaste for Figuarts. The head is off. You can just kind of tell it looks goofy. He's such a weird stick figure. He has no musculature at all. Like, he literally, honestly, putting these two side by side makes it look like that's like a Doombot version of Andrew's Spider-Man. Like, that's just a weird droid that he has that metallic finish, and he has these weird dimensions that just make it look like Andrew Garfield didn't want to be Spider-Man anymore, so he built a robot to do it for him, which would be a really weird concept for Amazing Spider-Man 3. They should use that. Anyways, I think between those two, it's really no contest. Easy recommendation for the Mafex version. But that's pretty much all I have for comparisons. Hopefully that gives you guys a good idea of what you're dealing with in terms of scaling and all of that. So with that done, we'll go ahead and move into the conclusion. So wrapping up my review now on the Mafex Amazing Spider-Man from Amazing Spider-Man 2, definitely not No Way Home. I have kind of gone back and forth on this figure. I've had some time to engage with it and really play around with it, and I have come to the conclusion that, once again, I really like a Mafex release. It's kind of like pizza, even not great pizza is still good pizza. That's a terrible analogy because it's not. That sounds bad. This is a great figure. I guess what I would say is, like, not the best pizza in the world is still good pizza. It's still like a cut above another type of food. I don't know. I'm losing the analogy. The point is, this is not one of Mafex's best, but it is still a really, really great action figure. And the, cost is a really big issue for me. I'm very disappointed in how much it cost to get it here, but that's not Mafex's fault. They don't control the way that all of this works, and the fact that I had to pay, I think $40 total in like tariffs and all the extra guff is really annoying. $80 is already a pretty big ask for a piece of plastic, and it normally is not a big deal to me. Normally I can pick up a Mafex and feel pretty good about it, but now with this new way that things are being handled, it's really getting to be an expensive thing to collect. So I would say if you have the money, it is absolutely worth it. If money is a big factor for you in collecting, which it should be, this may not be worth all of the extra expense. It comes with a lot of what we expect from Mafex, but it doesn't really do anything extra. And the price, while not being extra due to Mafex, is now extra. So honestly, I'm pretty confident CT Toys is going to make a really great knockoff of this, and I probably won't pick it up because it's probably going to be a little bit too pricey for buying a second version of this figure. I might get it just to do a review. I don't know. It will cross that bridge. We'll cross that imaginary bridge when we get to it. But yeah, I do a ranking system on here. It goes first grade, high grade, real grade, master grade, perfect grade. It's a holdover from Gundam model kits, but which I am going to do content for. I promise. I'll make Gundam content on this Gundam named channel. Anyways, I think this is going to have to be a real grade for me. It's, for a Mafex release, it is very middle of the road. It is recommended, but it is not a, crazy standout release that's blowing everything else out of the water. I do think it's the best version of this figure, or this character. I definitely don't think that the figure arts comes even close. I think that the Legends is good, but it's a little bit lacking in its articulation, and the colors aren't quite perfect. And the head sculpt is really good on the Legends. I think it's probably comparable to the Mafex, but just in terms of articulation and sculpt work and detail, I think the Mafex just beats all the competition for this specific design. So that's pretty much all I've got to say about it. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Thanks so much for sticking around. If you did enjoy the review, please do consider leaving a like. It helps me know what's resonating with people. It gives me a better idea of what content is doing well. So I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a good one.